My name is Elena, and I am that youngest daughter who is remembered when all the chairs at the table are already taken. Every Sunday, I drag myself to my parents' house in Westchester for a traditional family dinner. Although lately I have been coming up with increasingly sophisticated excuses. Today was no exception. I parked my Honda Civic near their typical suburban house, with its claims to Martha Stewart-style renovation, and took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. As expected, my older sister Julia was already sitting on the couch in the living room. Her husband Dave was looming nearby, while their offspring, Sophie and Matthew, were running around the house, sweeping away everything in their path. "Elena, you finally crawled in." Mom barely looked up from rearranging napkins on the table. No hugs. No warmth in her voice. "Hi, Mom. Dad." I nodded to my father, who was absorbed in discussing the eternal rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox with Dave. I heard about the parent-teacher conference at Julia's school. Mom instantly switched to adoring her eldest daughter. The teacher says Sophie reads 2 grades ahead. And Matthew's coach from the elite soccer academy thinks that next year the boy will make it onto the varsity team. Julia soaked up the attention like a sponge soaks up water. "Well, I work with Sophie every evening using advanced learning methods. And I take Matthew to additional training at the sports complex 3 times a week." I sat down quietly at the table. My presence was barely noticed. No one asked about my week, about my work, about my life. They never ask. What they don't know and never bother to find out is that 3 months ago I saved our company's largest client from total collapse. Received a bonus of $38. Woo-bay. A promotion to senior project manager at Google. And a salary that would make Dave choke on his whiskey. "Pass the potatoes." "Elena," Julia said, giving me that same look. The one that said, "Poor Elena. Still alone. Still renting a studio apartment. Still a nobody." I passed the potatoes and took a sip of wine. Another secret of mine. I asked my friend Kathy, who works at Zillow, to find me an apartment to buy. I have saved enough for a down payment. The main question is the mortgage approval. But why tell them? They will find a way to attribute the merit to Julia or will be shocked that I can afford it at all. And that is even worse. The rest of the dinner went by as usual, gushing about Julia, discussing Dave's work, and stories about perfect grandchildren. I was silent, letting their words flow around me like water around a stone. Their opinions had stopped bothering me a long time ago. A month after that memorable dinner, Kathy called with amazing news. She found the perfect option, a corner 2-bedroom apartment with a balcony and a designer kitchen in a new building near the Union Square subway station in Manhattan. That same evening, I went to view it and fell in love at first sight. "This is it." "Kathy," I said, running my hand over the quartz countertop. "I'll take it. Draw up the paperwork." 2 weeks later, I signed the mortgage agreement with Chase Bank. Now I am the owner. The feeling was cosmic pride. Achievement. Freedom. I thought about telling my family, but decided to wait until the next Sunday dinner. It would be nice to share good news for once. When Sunday came, I went to my parents' house. The news was burning inside me, but when I walked in, something felt wrong. There was an unusual excitement in the air. Julia's children were jumping up and down more actively than usual, and their parents were simply glowing with happiness. "What kind of celebration is this?" I asked, hanging up my jacket. Mom and Dad exchanged conspiratorial glances. "We've decided," Dad announced solemnly. "The whole family is going on vacation to Aspen, Colorado. Can you make it?" I thought about it. I hadn't been on vacation for 2 years, and there were no pressing projects in sight in my new position. "Yes, I can arrange it." Mom's face instantly broke into a smile. "Wonderful. The whole family together in Aspen. It would be magical." Her reaction caught me off guard. She seemed genuinely happy that I was going. It was unusual, and for a moment, I allowed myself to feel included. "We're leaving in 2 weeks," Dad explained. "We had been planning for a long time, but wanted to make sure everyone could do it before we announced it." I sat down. My own news temporarily took a back seat. A family vacation might be a good idea. Maybe they would see me differently away from their usual surroundings. Dinner continued with everyone discussing Aspen, what to pack, where to go, where to eat. For the first time in a long time, I was not completely ignored. Although the questions for me were more practical than personal. "Elena, are you sure you have vacation days?" Dad asked. "Yes. I can take 2 weeks." I decided to postpone the news about the apartment until I returned from vacation. Let Aspen be the center of attention. My new home wouldn't go anywhere. The following Sunday, I came to my parents' house, expecting to continue the enthusiastic chatter about the upcoming trip. Instead, I found Julia sitting at the table, her eyes swollen from crying. The children were suspiciously quiet and coloring at the coffee table. "What happened?" I asked, putting my purse down. Mom and Dad exchanged worried glances. Julia sobbed theatrically before answering. "Dave and I had a major fight." His voice was shaking. "He refuses to pay for my trip to Aspen. He says I'm already relaxing at home and don't deserve a vacation." I bit my tongue so as not to mention that Julia really doesn't lift a finger at home. Dave hired a cleaning service last year because Julia allegedly got migraines from housework. "So you're not going to Aspen?" I asked. Julia shook her head sadly. "No, unless Dave changes his mind." And he won't change his mind. He's stubborn as a mule. "No big deal." Dad patted Mom's hand. "We'll plan another family trip later. This isn't our last chance." The rest of the dinner was spent in somber tones. Everyone consoled Julia about her controlling husband. I was silent, feeling a strange mixture of sympathy and irritation. On the one hand, Dave shouldn't control the family budget like a dictator. On the other hand, I knew Julia well enough to guess that there were other sides to this story. The following week, I was busy preparing for vacation. I arranged for a 2-week time off, which my boss immediately approved. Grateful for my recent success with the project, I packed my suitcase, arranged for mail forwarding, and mentally prepared myself for 10 days with my parents without Julia as a buffer. The day before the flight, my mother called. "We've booked 2 rooms," she said. "One for me and Dad, one for you. Standard rooms at the mountain lodge. Nothing too fancy. But kit confortable." Great. I breathed a sigh of relief. At least I wouldn't have to share a bedroom. "We'll meet at JFK tomorrow morning." After hanging up, I looked around my nearly empty rental studio. Most of my things had already been moved to the new place. But I'd left a few things for show. I still hadn't told my family about the purchase. I decided to surprise them after I returned from Aspen. The next morning, I met my parents at JFK. We checked in, boarded the United flight, and 5 hours later we landed in Denver, then took a connecting flight to Aspen. The air was crisp and smelled of pine when we stepped off the plane. Despite all my doubts about 10 days with my parents, I felt a wave of anticipation. Our hotel was a 30-minute drive from the airport. The Mountain Lodge was a typical 3-star hotel with a decent pool and mountain views. A friendly girl named Christina met us at the front desk. "All our standard rooms are booked," she told us. "You are very lucky that you managed to reserve these. Only our suites and penthouses are available now. But those cost significantly more." "Got it. Thank you." I took the key card. My room was simple but clean. Queen bed, small balcony, walk-in shower. After unpacking my things, I changed into jeans and a sweater and met my parents by the fireplace for hot chocolate. The first 2 days we explored the surroundings, went hiking, and got used to the mountain rhythm of life. And you know what happened? It was actually nice. My parents were more relaxed here, comparing me less to Julia. I found myself enjoying their company more than I had in years. But on my 3rd day in Aspen, everything went to hell. I was applying sunscreen in my room, ready for a morning hike, when there was frantic pounding on the door as if there was a fire. I opened it to find my parents with worried expressions, and behind them stood Julia, disheveled, with wild eyes, and Sophie and Matthew huddled on either side, clutching her hands. Julia I was taken aback. "What the hell are you doing here?" Julia dramatically collapsed onto my bed. Dave and I had a final falling out. I couldn't stay in that house for another second. So I took money from his emergency fund and bought tickets for me and the kids. "You stole money from your husband." I couldn't hide my shock. Julia shot me a murderous look. "It's our money. Even if he's the one earning it, I deserve this vacation. And the kids, too." Mom nodded in agreement. "Of course you do. Honey, But where are you staying? I looked at their suitcases piled in the hallway. That's the problem. Yulia's voice suddenly became quiet. There was only enough money for the flights. There was no money left for the hotel. I thought the realization of where this was all heading hit me like a bucket of ice water. I remembered Christina's words when we checked in. All the standard rooms were booked. Only the expensive suites were available. Exactly, Dad said, looking straight at me with an expression that made me feel uneasy. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at me expectantly. Finally, Mom broke the silence. Elena, you need to pack your thing. What I was sure I had misheard. Pack your things, she repeated firmly. Julia and the kids need your room. I looked at their faces. A determined mother, an expectant father. Julia with the look that said this was my due status, and I felt a wave of rage rising inside me. And where should I go? I crossed my arms over my chest. Dad shrugged. Find another hotel or fly home early if you don't find anything. Julia deserves this vacation more than you do. After everything she's been through with Dave, Mom added, as if that would solve everything. I looked at them in complete shock. Are you serious? You want me to move out of the room I've already paid for and am living in, so that Julia can take it after she stole money and showed up unannounced? Enough, Mom barked. And then, to my complete shock, she ran to the closet, grabbed my suitcase and started throwing my clothes in there. Mom, stop, I screamed, trying to grab the suitcase from her, but she ignored me, continuing to stuff my things into the bag haphazardly. Once she had stuffed the suitcase, she zipped it up and rolled it out into the hallway. There, she said. Now Julia and the kids can settle in. I stood there thunderstruck, unable to believe what was happening. Julia was already ordering the kids to put their backpacks on the bed. Dad was collecting my toiletries from the bathroom in a hotel laundry bag. I could have resisted. I could have called the front desk and demanded that they be thrown out. The room was registered in my name. I could have made such a scene that the hotel staff would have told their grandchildren about it. But at that moment, looking at these people who were supposed to be my family, I felt something inside me break, and then turn into something harder, clearer. Without saying a word, I picked up my suitcase and left the room. I grabbed my purse, turned around and walked out, leaving my suitcase in the hallway. Behind me, I heard my parents and Julia already discussing who would sleep where. My first impulse was to book a ticket for the next flight to New York. But when I approached the front desk, a better plan formed in my head. Suddenly, I remembered Christina's words about luxurious penthouses. Christina looked up as I approached. Her friendly smile faltered when she saw my face. Elena, is everything okay? She asked. Note kite, I answered honestly. But we'll fix it now. You mentioned penthouses. Her eyes widened slightly. Yes, there are. But they are significantly more expensive than standard room. The amount she mentioned would have made me faint 2 years ago. I didn't even blink. I'll take your best one, please. I followed the bellhop who took my suitcase from the hallway outside my old room. We took the private elevator to the top floor. When he opened the door to my new suite, I couldn't help but let out a gasp of admiration. The penthouse was stunning, spacious, elegantly decorated, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountain. The living room flowed into the dining area. Beyond that, a fully equipped kitchenette. Beyond that, a huge bedroom with a California king-size bed. I opened a complimentary bottle of local wine, poured myself a glass, and stepped out onto the terrace. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink over the snow-capped peaks, leaning against the railing. I raised a glass to knowing my worth and took a long sip. That night I slept like a baby, sprawled out like a starfish on a huge bed with sheets that felt like clouds. In the morning I woke up to a gentle knock. Complimentary breakfast was brought to my room. After a meal on the terrace, I decided to go down to the lobby. Crossing the main floor, I noticed my parents and Julia with the children near the entrance. Apparently, they were heading to a nearby Denny's for affordable breakfast. They couldn't afford hotel prices. Julia noticed me first. Elena, there you are. She waved, as if we were casual relatives who had accidentally met at a resort. I slowly approached, keeping a neutral expression on my face, so Mom asked with a smug smile, "Where did you spend the night? Did you find another hotel?" Dad at least had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. Before I could answer, Christina materialized next to me. Elena, I wanted to confirm your spa appointment for today. As our VIP guest, we have reserved our premium treatment package. My family's expressions changed from smug to dumbfounded. VIP guest, Mom repeated. Christina smiled radiantly. Yes. Elena is staying in our premier penthouse, so she has access to all the exclusive services, including private dining at our fine restaurant. Will your family be joining you for dinner? Elena, the looks on their faces were priceless. Julia's jaw dropped. Mom's eyes widened. Dad looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. No, I replied calmly. They won't be joining me. Fine. Enjoy your breakfast. Christina nodded to my family, gesturing toward the exit, where a shuttle to budget restaurants was waiting. With a casual wave to my stunned relatives, I continued toward the spa, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I spent the day enjoying all the benefits of five-star service, had a massage at the spa, lounged in a private hot tub where attentive staff brought mountain cocktails. I went skiing when the weather was perfect and didn't think about my family once. In the evening, I returned to the penthouse to shower and change clothes. The hotel restaurant had a dress code, and I had brought a little black dress with me, just for such an occasion. I was just putting on my earrings when there was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw the whole family with their luggage. I seriously considered pretending I wasn't there, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door, blocking the entrance with my body. What do you want? Without waiting for an invitation, Mom squeezed past me into the penthouse. Dad, Julia, and the kids followed her. They were standing in my living room, staring at the luxurious furnishings. Mom was the first to come to her senses. Elena, we've decided to stay here with you for the rest of the vacation. He blinked. Should I'd misheard? Sorry, we checked out of our rooms. Dad explained, as if it were a perfectly reasonable decision. Julia and the kids have also moved out of your old room. We'll all stay here. There's more than enough room, added Julia, already eyeing how to fit on the huge sofa. I was so stunned, I couldn't speak. No, I said when I could speak again. You won't stay here. This is my room, which I pay for. And you are not welcome here. Julia stepped forward. Her voice became sickeningly sweet. Come on. Elena, don't be selfish. Look how much space there is here. We are family. I felt myself boiling. Family doesn't throw a person out of their room. Family doesn't make someone else's vacation their problem. Family takes interest in your life and is happy about your success. This is ridiculous, snapped Julia. We already checked out of our rooms. That's your problem. I quoted my dad's words. Now leave before I call security. They didn't move. Instead, they all started arguing at once, interrupting each other. Julia's voice drowned out the others. You're being incredibly selfish right now. I have children. I picked up the hotel phone. Hello. Front desk. Please send security to my room to remove unwanted guests. When I hung up, their expressions changed from righteous anger to panic. You're not serious, Mom breathed out. Absolutely serious. But where are we going? Julia's voice trembled. All the budget hotels are booked. There was a knock. Security arrived quickly. I opened the door and there stood Christina with 2 security officers. Is there a problem? Elena, yes. These people need to leave my room. But they refuse. Christina turned to my family. I'm afraid you'll have to come with me. Wait, Mom exclaimed desperately. What about our old rooms? Can we go back? Christina shook her head sympathetically. I'm sorry, but as I explained when you checked out, the rooms have already been given to new guests. As she escorted them out, Mom turned around. This isn't over. Elena. I closed the door behind them without answering. When I went out onto the terrace, I discovered that my phone was buzzing with messages. From Mom, we're at a Motel 6 by the highway. 1 room for all 5 of us. The bathroom smells of mold. I hope you're happy. From Julia, the children are crying because the beds are dirty. How can you do this to them? I turned off my phone and put it aside. Their attempts at manipulation may have worked once, but not anymore. I was responsible only for myself, and for the first time in my life, I put myself first. The rest of my vacation in Aspen was bliss. I kept my phone off, checking it once a day in case there was a real emergency. The angry messages from the family continued for 2 days, then suddenly stopped. Later, I found out why. A hotel employee mentioned that they had checked out of the motel and flown back early. Mom left a note at the front desk. "We are going home. I hope you are happy." Yes, I was more than happy. I spent the remaining days skiing, hiking mountain trails, riding the gondola, and dining in the best restaurants. I did everything I wanted. Without the burden of family expectations and judgment, I felt like a different person, lighter, happier, freer. As the plane took off from Denver, I watched the Rocky Mountains shrink below. I felt no sadness, only determination. This vacation was a turning point. There would be no return to the old way. From the airport, I went straight to my new apartment in Manhattan. It was still sparsely furnished, but it was mine. I walked from room to room, planning my purchases. Tomorrow, I'll buy a dining room table, maybe some artwork for the walls. I had time to make this place truly mine. 2 weeks after my return, I settled into my new apartment and went back to work. I threw myself into a new project. Using the confidence I gained from confronting my family, I began to speak up more at meetings, taking on additional responsibilities. One afternoon, the phone rang. Mom's number. I was expecting it, but I still felt a pang of anxiety. "Hello, Elena." "Where are you?" Mom's voice sounded accusing. "We went to your old apartment, and the landlord said you didn't live there anymore." "That's right. I moved." Pause. Then Mom spoke again. Her tone suddenly became honeyed and curious. "Moved where to? Give me the address. It's time for us all to talk and make peace." I heard Julia whispering something furiously in the background. "I bought my own place." "Got a mortgage?" There was a deafening silence on the other end. Then a muffled exclamation. "You bought an apartment," Mom finally squeezed out. "When how I got a promotion 2 months ago and a significant raise last year, plus a bonus for a major project. Why didn't you tell us?" The hurt in her voice was obvious, but it didn't touch me. "When would I tell you? During family dinners, where you talked only about Julia, or on vacation? When you kicked me out of my room?" Another longer silence. "We need to meet and talk," Mom finally said. "Family should not quarrel. What is the address? We will come this weekend." I took a deep breath. "No, Mom, I will not give you the address, and I do not want to meet. I need time away from all of you. Elena." Her voice became sharp. "We are your family. You can't just cut us off." "Actually, I can, and until you understand why your behavior was unacceptable, that's exactly what I'm going to do." I hung up before she could answer. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was unwavering. In the following months, the family tried to re-establish contact in every way possible. They called, texted, even sent messages to my work email through LinkedIn, sometimes angry, sometimes belittling, sometimes manipulative. I deleted most of them without finishing reading them. Through mutual friends, I learned that Julia and Dave were having serious problems in their marriage. The incident in Aspen was the last straw. Now they were on the verge of divorce. I felt a fleeting sympathy for the kids, but reminded myself Julia's choices were not my responsibility, and I was thriving. I had been promoted again, made new friends at a hiking club, even started dating a guy I met at a work conference. The apartment was fully furnished and decorated exactly the way I wanted. My sanctuary. Sometimes I thought about reconciling with my family. Maybe someday, if they showed sincere remorse and willingness to change, but I didn't hold my breath in anticipation or put my life on hold. My life was mine, and I enjoyed every moment of it. Story 2, I was sitting in the kitchen, tiredly stirring soup, when the front door slammed and my husband came home. His steps were confident, loud, as if he had just won some important battle. He didn't even take off his sneakers, walked straight into the room, threw his messenger bag on the couch and came to me. There was something contented, even triumphant, in his eyes. I thought, well, that's probably it. His parents had pumped him full of ideas again, but I couldn't digest what he said right away. Mom says 80% of your salary will go toward renovating her lake house. He blurted out, as if he was telling me something that goes without saying. Right. We're a family. I froze, loudly and humped. I thought I misheard. I asked again, hoping he had just made a bad joke. But my husband wasn't even embarrassed. He confidently sat down at the kitchen island and repeated in the same tone, "You understand? Everyone will be fine at the lake house, including our kids when they visit. This is an investment in the future." Everything inside me boiled. I felt the blood rush to my face. 80% of my salary flashed through my head. Doesn't he have his own money? Why mine? I asked him about it, trying to keep my voice from shaking. He snorted and waved his hand. "Yeah, I have plenty of expenses. I'm a man. I have my own obligations. The truck payment, golf trips, some things for the house, and you have a stable salary. And Mom is counting on your help. This is our mother. You have to understand." I stared at him in complete bewilderment. Like our mother. I respect his mother. But she was never my own, and certainly had no right to control my earnings. I remembered how I had saved money for a vacation to Hawaii more than once. How I had saved up for the kitchen renovation I had dreamed of for so long. And now all this has to go to the lake house, where there won't even be a corner for me. "Are you serious?" I finally squeezed out. "Do you want me to give almost my entire salary to your mother's lake house?" He looked at me as if I were a spoiled child throwing a tantrum over trivial matters. So what he answered calmly, "It's temporary. Mom said that the renovation would take a maximum of a year, maybe 18 months. But then we would all gather for summer weekends, barbecues and holidays." I felt a wave of anger rising inside me. A year and a half, and what would I live on during that time? 20%. Or do you think that I should go shopping at Walmart and count every penny while your mom redecorates the lake house? Seeing my look, he suddenly changed his tone. "What do you have against us anyway? Mom always helped us. When we had our wedding, she gave us money through Venmo. When I bought the truck, she also helped with the down payment. Now it's time to pay back." I remembered that help. The money for the wedding that my mother-in-law then presented as a debt, and more than once recalled that without her we would not have managed anything. And about the truck, it was a loan from Bank of America, which my husband is still paying. But in his eyes, everything looked different. Mother is always right. Mother always sacrifices. Mother is a saint. I wanted to shout, but I held back. Instead, I quietly said, "Are you ready to give 80% of your salary for repairs?" My husband leaned back in his chair and grinned. "Did you compare? My expenses are completely different. You know my salary from the contracting work is unstable. Sometimes with overtime bonuses. Sometimes without. And here you are with your steady office job. So you will have to." These words were the last straw. I felt my hands shaking and put the ladle on the counter so as not to drop it. There was only one thought in my head. For him, I am not a wife. Not a partner. But a wallet. A convenient ATM for his mother. I left the kitchen, not wanting to continue the conversation, because I knew that now everything would be turned against me. But the heaviness grew in my chest. At night, I lay for a long time with my eyes open, listening to his calm breathing next to me. He slept as if nothing had happened, and my head was spinning. And how long is he going to use me and my money to please other people's whims? I realized that a serious conversation awaited me ahead, but not about the lake house or money, but about who I really am to him, a wife or a source of income, and whether I am ready to tolerate such an attitude. I woke up in the morning with a heavy feeling. My husband was sleeping, sprawled out on half the bed, as if nothing had happened, and I was lying there looking at the ceiling. His words were spinning in my head. 80% of your salary will go towards renovating my mother's lake house. He said it so calmly, as if he was talking about something natural and self-evident. I stayed up most of the night, replaying our conversation over and over again. I got up quietly so as not to wake him and went to the kitchen. I made myself some strong coffee from our Keurig, sat down at the table and opened my budgeting app on my iPad. I counted every penny. Money set aside for a vacation, for new windows, for the kitchen remodel, for a small renovation in the master bathroom. Everything was planned down to the smallest detail using Mint and my Excel spreadsheets. I was proud that I could plan, that I kept our finances under control through online banking and automatic savings transfers, and now his mother and her dream lake house had to cross all of that out. I looked at my budget for a long time. The amounts that I had so diligently saved up through my Chase savings account in my husband's eyes, turned into a mandatory contribution to his family. Not a single word of gratitude for the effort and money I put into our home. Not a hint that it might be hard for me. Only demands. I remembered my mother-in-law's face. Pleased. Arrogant. She always knew how to manipulate. When we first got married, she immediately made it clear that her word in the house should be the most important. I didn't take her seriously then. I thought it was the older generation's habit of interfering. But over time, I realized that my husband didn't just listen to her. He obeyed her every word. Yesterday's situation only confirmed it. It wasn't he who made the decision, but she. He simply passed her order on to me, as if I was obliged to follow it. If I agree now, it will be the end of my plan, my desire, and my independence. When my husband woke up, I was already making breakfast. He came into the kitchen, stretched and, as if nothing had happened, said, "Well, what should I text Mom that you agreed?" She was so happy. She had already made a list on Amazon of what needed to be bought for the lake house. Let's start with the roof, then the windows. New furniture from Wayfair. I almost dropped the pan. "What did you do?" I asked quietly. "Well," so what? He shrugged. "You don't mind?" "Right. I promised my mom, and she's counting on me." Anger rose in me. I tried to speak calmly, but my voice trembled. "You didn't even ask for my consent. You just decided for me. It's my money. I work for it every day at the accounting firm. I was saving it for us. For our home. Not for someone else's lake house." My husband frowned with displeasure. "Stop being dramatic. What do you mean someone else's? It's my mother's lake house. Which means it's ours. Our children will vacation there. We will go there in the summer. It's a family investment. Why are you so greedy?" The word greedy hit me like a slap in the face. I felt something break inside. All my life I tried to be generous, to help, to support. I did not spare money for the family. I always invested more than he did through our joint checking account. And now he dares to call me greedy because I do not want to give almost all of my salary to his mother. "Greedy?" I asked again. "But maybe you will look the truth in the eye," I budget. "I save. I think about the future. And your mother sits and thinks about how to arrange a paradise for herself at someone else's expense. And you help her with this." He slammed his fist on the granite countertop. "Don't you dare talk about Mom like that. She always did everything for us." "For us?" I smiled bitterly. "Or for herself. Remember the wedding. She Venmo'd us money. And then for months she reminded us how much we owed her. Remember the truck? She helped with the down payment. It was a loan from the credit union that we are still paying off. But you still blindly believe her every word." He fell silent. A few seconds of silence seemed like an eternity. And then he said abruptly, "Okay, if you don't want to, don't give it. But keep in mind that it will ruin your relationship with Mom. She won't accept you anymore." This threat hung in the air. He said it calmly, almost indifferently, but that was what hurt the most. I suddenly realized that his mother's opinion was more important to him than mine. He was ready to destroy our marriage, just not to disappoint her. I put the plate with breakfast in front of him and sat down opposite him. Looked straight into his eyes and said, "If your mother's opinion is more important to you than mine, then maybe you should live with her in Michigan and not with me." He suddenly stood up from the table, grabbed his keys and left, slamming the door. And I was left alone, sitting in front of my half-eaten breakfast. My head was buzzing. I understood that this situation was not just an argument about money. This was a test of our relationship. And for the first time in my life, I was not sure that it would hold up. In the evening, he returned silent, as if there had been no morning conversation. He took off his work boots, sat down on the sectional sofa, turned on ESPN. I watched him, my heart clenching with bitterness. How could he so easily brush aside something that had nearly destroyed everything? I paced the kitchen, pretending to be busy loading the dishwasher. But inside me, a storm was boiling. I knew I had to talk. Otherwise, the silence would become an abyss. "We have to talk," I finally said. He frowned, as if I was preventing him from relaxing after a hard day. "Again, you've already said everything. You don't want to help. That's your right. But Mom is upset," he said, not taking his eyes off the television screen. "I'm surprised," I answered firmly. "That you think more about her feelings than mine? Aren't I your wife? Aren't we supposed to be a team?" He sighed. turned off the television with the remote, and looked at me with tired eyes. Understand? I can't refuse my mother. She raised me alone after Dad left. She did everything for me. I feel obligated. I bit my lip. It's right to be obligated to your parents. But why should I pay his debts of gratitude? Why should my life be dictated by his mother? You are obligated to take care of her, I said, trying not to lose my temper. But not at my expense. I don't mind helping if it's our mutual choice. Not her order that you pass on to me. He frowned. And it's hard for you to understand. She expects my support. If I refuse, she'll be heartbroken. And if you listen only to her and not to me, isn't that a betrayal of me? I asked, feeling my voice tremble. He fell silent. For the first time, I saw confusion in his eyes, as if my words had hurt him more deeply than he wanted to admit. But then he turned away, as if he didn't want to show weakness. We sat opposite each other, and the silence was more oppressive than any words. I understood that this family had long had a third invisible member, his mother, and it was she who controlled our every decision. I stood up, took our financial planning folder from the shelf and put it in front of him. Here, look. These are our plans. I saved money through automatic transfers to our savings account so that we could renovate the bathroom, replace the windows, go on a cruise to Alaska. We have to live our own lives. If everything goes to your mother's lake house, our dreams will remain only on paper. He turned the pages without looking up. I saw how he clenched his jaw, how he fought with himself. Finally, he slammed the folder shut. You're putting me in front of a choice. Either you or Mom. I closed my eyes for a second. These were the words I was most afraid to hear. No, I answered quietly. It's not me who's choosing. It's you who got us into this situation because you never learned to tell her no. He stood up, walked around the room, then stopped by the sliding glass door to our backyard. You don't understand. If I refuse her now, she will never trust me again. And if you continue to obey her, I will stop trusting you, I said directly. He turned around. His gaze was heavy, almost hostile, but behind this anger, I caught something else. Fear. Fear of losing me. Fear of losing his mother. Fear of being caught between two fires. We were silent. The wall clock from Target ticked louder than usual. For the first time, I felt that our marriage was on the brink. And the decision depended not on me, but on whether he had the courage to become an independent person. I went to the bedroom, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Lying in the dark, I heard him walking around the living room, sighing heavily. But that night he never came to bed. I knew that tomorrow everything could change. Either we would find a way out, or our paths would begin to diverge. And no matter how painful it was, I was ready for the latter. The next morning I woke up to the quiet clink of coffee mugs in the kitchen. Usually it was my routine to make breakfast while my husband was still asleep. But today everything was different. I saw him sitting at the kitchen island with his laptop and his iPhone. In front of him lay a stack of papers, our financial plans, a printout of our savings from our online banking, even mortgage calculations. He looked tired, but there was a seriousness in his eyes that I had not seen for a long time. "Are you awake?" he said quietly, as if he was afraid to scare away something fragile. I thought all night. I was wary. Usually, after such words, he would start talking again about his mother or about how family is sacred. But this time he fell silent, gathering his strength, and then suddenly added, "You're right. We can't live for the desires of others. Mom will never be satisfied, no matter how much I give her. And I risk losing you." I looked at him and couldn't believe my ears. It seemed that for the first time he saw the obvious. "And what are you going to do?" I asked carefully, afraid to ruin this fragile moment. It took a deep breath, put his coffee mug aside. "I'll call Mom today. I will tell her that we cannot give her 80% of your salary, that we have our own plans, our own life. I will help her within reasonable limits, but not at the cost of our family." I felt everything inside contract. This phone call promised to be difficult. His mother is not the type to take refusal calmly. She is used to her son fulfilling every wish, and she blames me for turning him against her. "She won't forgive you for this," I said bluntly. "So be it. But if I don't learn to set boundaries now, we'll never be happy. I want to be with you, not live under my mother's control my whole life." His words sounded unexpectedly firm. For the first time, I felt that he wasn't just promising, but was really ready to act. A hope stirred inside me that I had long since suppressed. I came closer to him, put my hand on his shoulder. He looked at me with a slight smile, which still showed weariness, but also determination. "I'm here for you," I said, "but if you're having a hard time, don't let me take it all on again. We have to go through this together." He nodded and squeezed my hand. And at that moment I realized that there would be many arguments, tears, resentments, and perhaps even dramatic phone calls and Facebook posts from his mother ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I saw that he was ready to put us above other people's demands. And that meant our family had a chance